Welcome to Faded Hand podcast number 5, probably. We're gonna keep going through the class list here. So let's get started with Mystic. Mystic is our first, or Scholar. My bad. Scholar is our first tier 2 class. This is a magic class. Upgrades from Student. Tier 2 Scholar. Here we go. The Arcane Master in Training. What will they become? Affinities: Light Arms, Light Armor, Arcane, Dark, Holy. Promotes to Mage and Witch. Story spells: two of 1 card cost, 1 of 2 card cost, 2 of 3 card cost.
That means we got to introduce story spells.
Yeah, you should introduce story spells.
Okay, so we make a hard distinction between spells that you use in battle and spells that you don't use in battle. And the reason for this is basically one of the things, again, I don't hate D&D. I'm going to dog on D&D because we have played D&D and I have opinions on it. But one of the things that's very unsatisfying about playing a wizard in D&D is spell slots. Particularly that you need to use your spell slots for fighting and for, like, the story. So if you want to cast Identify or, detect or, like, translate languages or stuff, all of those
or
cost
disguise self.
all of those cost you a spell slot, which is the same ammunition you use in battle. And the game is designed such that this works out. The game is designed so that it's very playable this way. But the player has a psychology that makes them want to hold on to those spell slots like they were a gift from God.
Well, and I think specifically, like, I agree with that, but more than the spell slot issue is the number of spells.
Oh, that's true, and the attunement issue, yeah.
So I know that I've had multiple bards play through, and so the bards are always constantly just like, they have like fun spells and they're just like throwing magic around. But then when you get down to it,
and
like the bard has gets to know like 3 level 1 spells, and so it's like, well, I can either do damage or I can take my charm person and my like disguise self, and it's like, okay, you want to be able to do both, but you just can't.
Basically, D&D has this general problem where it's trying to really sell you on the idea that it's a simulation of real life, or at least a simulation of some kind of real life in a fantasy way, and thus it makes you invest your resources and split between fighting and stuff that's not fighting. However, then the game has this bias where in the game you spend a totally disproportionate amount of your time fighting. Like in real life, I've spent basically 0% of my time fighting. I never fight anyone. I don't go out in the streets and have a slime encounter where I've got to kill 2 slimes to get to my car. As fun as that would be. And so this makes it so that in the game, you just get this really unsatisfying choice between picking charm person and getting to charm a person in a story situation, or picking, like, a battle spell and getting to help during the battle, which is where you spend a lot of your time.
Yeah.
And this is made worse by the fact that story situations are very open-ended. So any time that you could solve a problem with a spell in a non-combat situation, you probably could have done it another way. The Game Master doesn't want you to get soft-locked. If the Game Master was willing to soft-lock you, spells would be more fun. If he was like, oh yeah, you gotta have this spell. If you didn't take it 6 steps back, you guys gotta spend 4 more weeks wandering around until you get the spell. That would make spells honestly more fun, but it would be a hardcore kind of game. So the other thing about non-combat spells is that the Game Master would probably just let you get away without it anyway. It's very frustrating to play with.
Yeah.
So in this game, we just cut that Gordian knot in half. There are specifically combat spells and specifically story spells, and you get a portion of each. You can't really invest one in the other. You always have battle spells, you always have story spells, and you always have them. This makes it so you don't have to feel bad about picking a fun spell that just has like a story effect, because you're still going to have as many fighting spells as you can have. You're not losing out on fighting ability to get these spells.
For example, all of the story magic like Gust, Flame. Now, I note here, you may think, oh, Flame, that'll like damage people. I simply say setting small fires. So hypothetically, in combat, you could light something on the ground on fire. You could do that. But there's also nothing that stops the fighter from pulling out a flint and steel and putting sparks on the ground. They can do that too.
There's a specific rule above that says that a story spell Basically, every story spell doesn't do any kind of combat interaction. It can't do damage, it can't do an effect, it can't do anything. If any story spell would be written in such a way that it seems like it does, it just doesn't. It's just, there's no way. Now, again, if you want to do a story, you're allowed to do story spells in battle, but they could only do what they would do outside of a combat interaction. So you can't make an attack with flame, but if there's like dry tinder nearby, you can light it on fire using flame.
Yeah. Which I think it's also just reasonable because, you know, the fighter, the lout could do that too with just a flint and steel.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't actually change anything. Yeah, so that's
and that would be really expensive to do.
Yeah.
Because you would have to pay the cost.
And I think it's a face card.
Yeah, it's not a cheap spell.
No. Okay, so that is story spells. So then we just specify how many you get and what kind you get. So you get 2 really cheap ones, you get 1 a little bit more expensive, and you get 2 kind of big ones.
So every time you join a magic class, you just get to pick from that big list of story spells a bunch of spells that you learn.
Yeah.
And then I assume you should be able to learn more like inside the story, like if the GM wants you to.
Yeah, probably.
But we don't like to make the GM work, so we just want you to get the spells.
Yeah.
Because if the GM has to give you scrolls, he's gonna forget, and then you won't have spells, and you won't have fun. So you just get them in the rules right here.
Yeah. And so that is, scholar, alternate hand size 4, alt draw rate 2, +2 magic strike, +2 speed. So big bump up from student of alternate hand size of 2, doubles your draw rate, just all around better stats here, and the class perk Deep Recall. I love this one. Once per encounter, search your discard pile, draw up half alt hand size, draw up to half alt hand size cards in your into your alternate hand. I really love this because the way Magic is themed in Faded Hand is there's the waves of magic that kind of radiate off of everything, and magicians are able to pluck out certain like notes of what's happening and hold on to those, and then when they need to, put them together and cast spells into the material world. And Deep Recall is looking backward and saying, there was this note a long time ago, I bring that back and then put it together. And I just really love like the idea of the scholar just looking like inward, looking back, and then just like casting a big spell. And I really love that.
Yeah, it's also very fun to use in combat. Deep Recall is basically the perk that Inspiration wishes it was.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why Inspiration isn't as good, because I've been playing characters that have both, that have Deep Recall and Inspiration.
True.
And Inspiration is like, it's a much better version of the same idea of Inspiration. Maybe we'll change Inspiration to just be something else.
We may. We'll see. So that's Deep Recall. I love Deep Recall. Next up, these are the actual level perks. Spirit Fuel. When you target a creature standing in or adjacent to a field effect, you may consume the power of the field effect to strengthen your attack or spell. Remove the field effect, gain +2 strike and +2 magic strike during the associated action. You wanna?
So we talked about field effects.
Guys, did we talk about field effects?
Yeah, commenters, comment if we talked about field effects.
I feel like we just touched on them briefly just in here. I don't think we actually
Field
did
effects
that much.
are things you can put on the board.
Yeah.
There's stuff like flame, brine, smog. There's something that you put on, that your spells put on the board, and it has a negative effect on creatures who are near it and around it.
Generally, they will get placed down by spells.
They're standardized. The point of having them up here in the main rules is that these are standard mechanics that all the spells and creatures are able to use. They're not like specific to any one spell.
Yeah, there's no
what was happening is that we were getting this buildup of like each spell is like, oh, I want this spell to put a thing on the board. I want this spell to put a thing on the board, and then there's like so many things that can go on the board.
12 different things on the board.
So what I did was I unified them. There's a bunch. These are the main things that go on the board, and there's really nothing else.
Yeah.
And you don't really need to know what these do to understand the perk. The perk says when you cast a spell on someone and that someone is near a field effect, that field effect is summoned, like it's a magical essence, you know? What that's saying is that you kind of like, you take the power out of the field effect and you just use it on your spell. You just take it away.
Yeah. I really like Spirit Fuel. I think that Spirit Fuel is a fun tool, and I feel like a lot of people won't take it but people who do take it and work for it will get a lot of usage out of it.
It can be very strong. It's one of these kind of setup abilities where like if you set it up and get it to work, it's quite a strong buff.
Yeah. All right, next up, studied spells. You are well trained in the art of studying and extending academic skills. When you cast a spell, which you have both mastered and have access to in another way, such as from a catalyst, the spell is stronger. Gain either +2 magic strike, +2 defense, or +3 speed during the casting of the spell. So you would have to master the spell. So if you were to have taken academic from the previous one, then you would only need 2 knowledge points. So if you have mastered a spell, one thing that I don't think we've specified yet, if you have a spell mastered, if you've learned it from your catalyst, you no longer need your catalyst to cast it.
The catalyst is like training wheels for that spell. So each catalyst has a list of spells that come with it. Have we explained that? I think we haven't.
I don't think we have.
Yeah, so the main way you're supposed to learn spells in this game is through catalysts. So what will happen is that you'll go to a shop or something and you'll find, say, the Crooked Wand. And the Crooked Wand has a list of spells that are associated with it. And whenever you hold the wand as a weapon, you are allowed to cast those spells.
Yeah.
You don't have to have them mastered. You have the wand, and the wand has the spells in it, right? But then, every time you cast a spell, that triggers the experience rule of the knowledge points. You get a knowledge point in that spell. So then, after you cast the spell 4 times, you'll have mastered it. And at that point, the training wheels will become unnecessary.
So
you could just put the wand on the ground and cast the spell on your own. You know it in your head.
Yeah.
And what this perk does is this perk gives you a reason to keep using the catalyst. It says, oh, if you have had access to a spell 2 ways, if you mastered it and you still got the catalyst, your spell is strong. You've really mastered it.
The way I imagine kind of the mastering thing is in Harry Potter, how like almost all people use their wands to cast their spells, but then if you're super powerful, you just know the spell and can cast it.
Harry Potter is so unclear on this because
it's very
some characters do it,
well,
but only the strongest wizards do it.
Yeah.
And only sometimes with the smallest spells.
Yeah.
So it clearly must be extremely difficult.
Yeah. In this, it's much easier. It's just like if you've cast the spell a bunch of times, then you know how to do it. Because 4 times is quite a bit to cast a spell. Like I would say,
4 casts. You probably have only 1 spell mastered.
Most likely, Petty Hex, like any of the very small ones, such as like Petty Hex or Flash Bolt or something like that. Just those even cards. Those you could pretty reasonably get that in.
Which, by the way, a lot of these mechanics, these knowledge mechanics, give you an incentive to drag out battles to train up your abilities, and I think that's hype.
I'm fine.
I think that's hype to trap one enemy and be like, no, guys, let me train my spells on him. First of all, because if you do it and it works, that's funny and you had fun. But if you do it and it fails, then all your friends will make fun of you, and there's so much risk there.
Yeah, if you've captured the wolf and then the wolf just like bites you, and you fall down, and then they have to go.
If your team somehow manages to lose a battle because you were dicking around trying to train a spell or something, or train a weapon, like especially with weapons, like I got this awesome sword, but I don't know how to use it. I got to train it. That means if you want to train it in a good speed, you're gonna have to find a time in battle where you can pull out a shitty weapon and get a knowledge point with it.
Yeah.
And if you lose the battle for your team, they're gonna make fun of you ridiculously. It's gonna be so funny.
Yes. And that's not to say always be nice to your.
No, bully your friends.
Be nice to your friends. Be mean to characters. There's difference. Always have good community. All right. That next up, mobile intellect. Every 3 tiles. Bad words, like bad writing style
of your move. This one's been through revisions. This one's been through a lot of revisions.
Every 3 tiles of movement, draw an alt card. Retain any remaining movement for future turns.
How did this get through?
Well, I haven't read this far down in the grammar check yet.
Well, no, but we've revised this many times, Greg. We've read this again and again.
Well, when we revise it, we just make it worse.
Yeah,
because we just like add phrases. Anyway. Example, Joe moves 2 tiles on turn 1 and 1 tile on turn 2. Joe now draws 1 alt card. Example 2, Greg moves 2 tiles on turn 1, 0 tiles on turn 2, 1 tile on turn 3. Greg cannot draw an extra alt card.
Maybe I just need to take this perk out. Maybe we can't word it properly. And it gives you a lot of alt cards, which we've discussed as
that was because we were moving too much. Remember, that was when speed was just... When evasive stance was
we also let We also let phase walk qualify.
Phase
for
walk
this.
also qualified for that.
Phase walk should. I'm not sure if the rules forbid it, but phase walk should. We should say like only like walking movement. You have to actually pay movement.
Yeah,
costs.
for every 3 tiles you pay for movement. Yeah, so mobile intellect will probably get changed, but I also really like mobile intellect. The concept of it, probably either the amount will change.
I think the amount's good. Like 1 for 3. I like the amount.
Yeah.
Maybe it wouldn't be. Maybe we could take away the continuous part is making the description really complicated.
Yeah.
What if we made it instead of 3 tiles continuous through turns, we made it 2 tiles, not continuous. You got to move 2 tiles on a turn, and you can only get 1 per turn.
Yeah, seems fine.
I think that would help us word it properly.
Yeah.
It'll help us word it in a non-nightmarish way.
Okay. Say that to make sure we know what it is.
Okay, so
Mobile intellect.
What mobile intellect will say after I go edit it is that on your turn, if you move up the first, god damn it, on your turn, actually not your turn because you can move out of your turn during a round. Each round, when you have moved a total of 2 tiles, draw 1 alt card.
It's perfect.
That's the rule.
That's it.
I took a lot to boil that down.
Yes. So that's what mobile intellect is. What mobile intellect kind of represents is this is the scholar. This is the person who's very academic. Is like whenever like you're working on homework and then you get up and you just like walk around the room and you gotta like pace to think about it.
Pacing. We almost called it something related to being pacing.
We
like
can get
pacer or pacing thought or pacing study. Pacing study could still work actually because we have all the things. Some of the things that give you cards are called study, quiet study, motionless study.
But I really like mobile intellect. Or just like the concept of it, because you're like casting and you're like, you have to look for more like waves and echoes in the magical field. So you have to like walk around and figure out what's going on, and then you're like, oh, I got it, and then you can cast everything together. And I really like that.
I don't think we're totally in love with the name though, right? Like if someone gave us a golden name, we would love it.
If you guys have a better name,
yeah, come to our Discord and
put it in the Discord.
Give me a better name for this perk. Yeah. I love the perk. We've never found the perfect name for it.
Names are hard. There's a lot of perks here. Like it's not easy. All right. Next up, Arcane Riposte. When you defend successfully, draw 1 alt card. You may cast 1 spell immediately. Yeah.
So this perk is a defense perk kind of for wizards. It's actually kind of hard to use because as a wizard you're going to have super low defense and you have to defend successfully for this to work. The main thing that it does is that there are defense spells in the game that you can cast on reaction, and a large part of this is to pay you back for using those spells. Like if you cast like arcane defense or whatever,
deflection.
Yeah, cast arcane deflect. It costs you a card. Well, then this perk would let you then draw another card and cast another spell, so you can counterattack with a spell and pay your cost back for casting that kind of spell. So it can be really good because there's no limit on it, and there's no limit on how many times you get attacked. So you could just do like a ton of spells out of turn, but you would have to be defending to make this work. It makes you put yourself at risk.
Yeah, I think it works. It may eventually get tweaked.
It's one of those perks that I like because it offers you a great opportunity, but you have to really think how you would fit it into a wider game plan.
Yeah. Next up, Sorceress. Last one for Scholar. Sorceress.
And this one's kind of overpowered.
When you draw an alt card in your starsuit, you may draw another card.
We discussed starsuits, right? It's a birthday mechanic.
Yeah. I actually don't think we have
birthday mechanic.
So yeah, starsuit. You have a starsuit determined based on your character's birthday. Over here. So if you were born in March, your starsuit would be clubs. And so whenever your character draws
you have better magical resonance with that kind of magic card because that's your birth season.
Yeah, you are that thing. So that is what starsuits are. They come into play with some perks. There are a lot of story perks that have to deal with them, such as like reading someone's thoughts. You have to use the opponent's starsuit because you have to tap into like their waves and things like that. So that's kind of how starsuits work. They're pretty simple. I forget if Sorceress is way too good.
Sorceress is very good. Here's what it says: when you draw an alt card in your starsuit, you may draw another card. So, in the deck, there are 4 suits. That's 1/4 of the cards. So this is saying when you draw an alt card, 1/4 chance to draw another card. Now, if you've taken high school calculus, you'll know how to add up because when you could draw another starsuit card on your next card.
Yeah.
You could keep drawing them for quite a long time. So the question as to what the average value of this perk is one I'll leave as an exercise to the reader. But it's pretty valuable, and you gotta remember that it's when you draw an alt card in your starsuit. You can also have two card draw per turn. Like if you pick Scholar and you go to the mage line, you'll draw 2 cards per turn. So this will be worth double what it was worth before. Actually, you have to go to In Scholar to get this, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think Sorceress is available on Mystic as well.
Yeah.
I might limit this to 1 per turn or a limit per turn because it has occasionally added up to be a lot of cards.
Yeah.
Its average value is very high.
Well, especially I'm considering a scenario where somebody gets targeted and uses like Arcane Riposte or whatever, and then like they defend successfully and then draw a card and it's their starsuit, draw another one, it's their starsuit. Suddenly they have 5 cards and they just like unleash onto this person, which I both like.
It
and
is
dislike.
supposed to make a spiky mechanic. So part of that is intended is I wanted this
Yeah.
to help you spike because you draw at the beginning of your turn, but you discard at the end of your turn. So you're allowed to overdraw your hand limit by a bit, and this lets you extend that greatly. But I do feel like it gives you a bit much. I don't want to just make it a limit. I don't want to say once per turn, because that just gives you 1/4 of a card per turn, and I feel like that's a little lackluster.
Yeah. I would say, if anything, we should just change it in a row. So I would say you can only use this once per draw.
I see.
So
if you draw 2 cards, you still your 2 base draws are still eligible to be 2 starsuit draws.
yeah. But then if either of those starsuit draws are yours, you can't continue that chain on.
All right.
And so if 3 scenarios happen and that you're able to draw, all of those are eligible, but not their follow-up.
That makes it still work on Arcane Riposte and stuff. I think that would tune it down to the level that we were asking for.
Yeah. So most likely what we said is when you draw an alt card in your starsuit, you may draw another card. This cannot continue with the card you just drew.
And you won't have to go compute the average value of this continued sum. I'm pretty sure it's worth half a card. I'm pretty sure it's worth 1.5.
Yeah. Okay, so that's Sorceress. I really like Sorceress just because it lets you use your birthday mechanic, and I think it's fun.
Birthday mechanics. Half the things I put in this game, Greg was like, "That's stupid," and then a month later, he's like, "That's great."
Well, okay.
You hate it.
Yeah.
You thought birthday mechanic was stupid.
I still don't love it.
You don't like birthday mechanic?
I think it's fun.
I think it only works because it's neutral.
Yeah.
Like everything that uses your starsuit, everyone has a starsuit.
Yes.
So when something references your starsuit, it's just another way to reference a 1 in 4 chance in kind of a fun way.
Yeah, it's effectively saying every time you roll a d4, draw another one.
Yeah. It's just a fun way to reference a 1 in 4, and I think it's cute.
I do think it is cute. All right, that's all of Scholar.
I suppose it does have an association where if you were really trying to min-max your character,
Yep.
you could look at what cards use what suits and choose a starsuit that works with those cards. It would help you ever so slightly cast those spells more often.
And if you do this, I really want, role-playing wise, I want your parents to have planned out you to be the next great magician and planned your birth to be in this season.
Yeah.
I hope that's how you
and
roleplay
roleplay that
that
your character's a lame nerd, because that's what you would be in real life if you did that.
Yeah, I was born in August, so I got to start school a year later, so I'm actually a year older than all of you guys. That's what that is. All right, so that's all of Scholar. So let's move on to Mystic. Tawdry, purveyor of fortunes and foibles. Are their ravings truth or madness? Is that what foibles? Did I read foibles correctly there?
Yeah. Incredibly.
You're a horrible person.
I was just going wild when I wrote these. This was
The next 4 are all weird.
they're all whack.
Affinities: light arms, light armor, medium armor, dark, holy, promotes witch and cleric. Same story styles. All of the tier 2 has have the same story spell amounts. Just specifying that. Alternate hand size 5, bigger than Scholar. Alternate draw rate 1, less than Scholar. 2 magic strike, 2 speed, and the class perk Foresight. Once per encounter, inspect the top alt hand size cards in your deck. These remain the top cards in the same order. You may inspect these same cards again any time before they are drawn. You may put these off to the side and draw from them first and look back if you forget. So pretty much like you have an alt hand size of 5. You can look at the next 5 cards in your deck, look at them, then put them off to the side and then draw from that, so you know exactly what's coming down the line. I really like this one. Do you want to tell more about it?
Yeah. I just think this is really cool. I think this mechanic is cool because now that you have a deck, it's natural to introduce some mechanics where you're like, oh, you get to look at the deck. And I think it fits really well to put it on the mystic, like fortune teller type character. Like, he actually can see the future. You really do get to look into the future in this game because we actually have the future stacked in front of us. I think as a general design rule, again, all the class perks are supposed to be something that really helps and really help define the game plan for that class. And notice the alt hand size versus the alt hand draw rate. Mystic has a worse spellcasting power than the Scholar. Scholar gets alt hand size 4, draw rate 2. Mystic gets hand size 5, draw rate 1. So he only gets one more hand size, but he gets half the draw rate. It's much less good draw-wise. However, he gets the advantage that he knows what's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah. One thing that I also really love about Foresight is that it puts a timer on your cards. So like you can look ahead 5, and because you have a low alternate draw rate, you can look ahead 5 and then plan out your next few turns and work to make sure, like, because you already know the spells that you know, and you can see what's going on. You know what spell you'll have access to 2 turns from now. You can say, in 2 turns I can cast Time Warp or whatever. So in the next 2 turns, you got to make sure you are ready to cast your Time Warp or your whatever spell, your Breaker Beam or something like that. And I really like that, like, the imagery of the Mystic, like, eyes glossing over and then looking back and being like, I gotta get behind the enemy lines, and just like running off, and everybody else is like, what's going on?
Yeah, because if you wanted to, you could look ahead. You could see 2 cards. You're like, oh shit, that'll be this spell. And then in 2 turns, you know it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
To be completely honest, though, I do think Mystic has gotten less play testing time than Scholar has. I do think he's going to be easier to balance, and I think he's a little underbalanced right now. I think he's currently a little underpowerful, just because Scholar gets to cast, Mystic gets to look forward and maybe cast.
Yeah.
What I might do is, first of all, I might let you refresh Foresight. Like, Foresight says you get to see the first top 6 cards. I might say that it's just for your alt cards, because right now it's for all your cards.
Yeah.
I might say it's just for your alt cards. Like, you have to take the alt cards off and put them in a separate pile.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then I would say you always get to see the next 6. So after you've drawn those 6 alt cards, you take another stack off.
Okay, like you
always you get a sliding window of always seeing your cards.
Yeah, that would make
that would help.
I think that would make that much better, and I really like that. If you're always just like, give me a second, I know what's coming.
Because I was perfectly happy with them being able to see your combat cards as well. But I'd rather it focus. Having played Scholar, I'm seeing that I would like if it focused more on Magic.
Okay. Yeah. So we will change that to that. First level perk, Dark Gate. Once per battle, on your turn, you may disappear and materialize on a field effect. I want to change. I don't like on your turn. We're gonna change that to once per round.
Oh yeah, right. Because you could
on
do it out of turn.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this might be on your turn because this is a teleport. Like, it's not clear when you would be able to do this.
Just once per battle, just take this out. Once per battle.
No, then that lets you do it out of turn technically.
Yeah.
So it's like while someone else is moving, you can just dip.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. It is a once per battle. You know what? I like that.
I think that's fine.
Now, does that mean you can do it absolutely anytime? Like, someone targets you with an attack and you just dip?
If this breaks an engagement, your counterparty cannot riposte.
Oh right. That is a purpose.
That's kind of the point.
That is the point. That is the point of it. I forgot.
That's the point.
Okay.
So yeah. So somebody targets you and you're like,
that I'm dumb. That is the point of this ability.
Let me finish reading this. Once per battle, you may disappear and materialize on a field effect you created. If this breaks an engagement, your counterparty cannot riposte. So what this means is, let's say I'm a mystic and I'm going around doing my shady shenanigans, and I throw out some slime somewhere, right? And then I'm standing waiting for my next card and knowing what's about to come, and then somebody comes running at me with a sword, and then I simply disappear into the void, and then stand up from the slime however many tiles away. That's what this is going for, and I love that idea of the Mystic just going, uh-oh, and then just dipping out and then materializing out of... All the field effects are really weird stuff. Just like coming out of the slime or just like coming out of like the brine or water or whatever is really funny to me.
It should also specify that you don't suffer the effect from doing this.
Yes.
Or should it? Should you just eat the effect? You did just teleport. You just did a freebie teleport.
Sure, you did do a free teleport without...
I want to say you have to eat it.
Yeah, you eat it. Well, the only one that would actually affect... That would affect brine and flame. Wouldn't affect slime.
If we're going to make you... Yeah, if we're going to make you eat the effect, should it be more than once per battle? Because I like that it's a once per battle, just overpowered teleport.
Should you eat the effect, or should you...
But like I'm saying, if we make you eat the effect,
yeah,
we're already making you kind of pay a weird penalty of eating your own effect.
Yeah.
And it's also a once per battle.
I
feel like if it's going to be a once per battle, it should give you a free out on the effect. Or it should make you do the effect, and instead of it being once per battle, it's like a cost. Because
I think it should be once per battle, don't pay the cost.
Okay.
Don't
because
use the mouse.
Because if we made you pay a cost, then this would be a pseudo spell, and I removed all the
I
removed all the pseudo spells.
For a while we had, for a lot of the classes, they got spells as some of their level perks.
Yeah, for a while you could level up and you could just learn a spell when you leveled.
And we removed that because we didn't love that. We weren't in love with how that worked, because then the magic users just had they just only had their spells, and they never had anything like cool and rules wise that they got to do.
We learned that the way we design spells, that you need perks as well.
Yeah.
Like the melee characters, the fighter characters get perks and then their attacks, and we thought that your spells would be so special and unique that you didn't need perks. But you actually really do.
You actually do. And I really like the perks that we have now instead. So yeah. So Darkgate, you pretty much just get a free teleport at any time during the battle onto one of your field effects. That's really the big limiter of this, is that it has to be one of your field effects. So you have to have planned out, all right, there's this field effect there, and I know that. So later, someone comes at me, I'm over there instead. Which I think that this would be kind of cool if you put a field effect somewhere that's out of range of everything, so that you could just disappear over there.
It definitely encourages you to throw a field effect somewhere random.
Which I think is interesting, and I think it also goes along with the idea of the Mystic just doing weird things during combat.
Yeah, turn one, he throws a ball of slime in the corner. Why do you do that?
Yeah, everyone turns around and goes, dude, why didn't you slow the enemy? Just wait, I know. So that's Darkgate. And it looks like we are a little bit past time, so we will keep covering Mystic.
We don't want to finish covering. We're just gonna. This is a bingeable thing.
Yeah, I think that
people
can do with that.
Binge this. Okay.
All right, we'll keep covering Mystic next time. See ya.